In an alternate world, King Albert of Elfrieden and Prime Minister Marx decide to summon a hero to face a dire threat. Kazuya Souma, a young man training to be a civil servant, finds himself summoned as their hero. Albert and Marx explain demons appeared 10 years ago and took over the northern kingdoms. The remaining kingdoms keep them invading, but maintaining armies is expensive, so Kazuya was summoned by the bankrupt Elfrieden Kingdom to trade to the Grand Chaos Kingdom instead of gold. Kazuya convinces Albert to keep him as he was training to be a civil servant. For 3 days, Kazuya learns everything he can about Elfrieden's economy. On the 4th day, Albert announces he is abdicating the throne to a shocked Kazuya, who will also marry his daughter, Liscia. Liscia is convinced Kazuya stole the kingdom, but is surprised to find he has already found the money for Grand Chaos by trading Elfrieden jewelry to the neighboring Amadonia Principality. Liscia realizes his other plans are also well thought out. Elsewhere, Duchess Excel of Walter sends her granddaughter Canaria to spy on Kazuya and decide if he is as capable as he appears. Marx puts Kazuya through an aptitude test to see if he can use magic. Kazuya discovers his magic can copy his consciousness into objects which then behave as if they are him, so he enchants pens to do his paperwork. He also puts assistants to work, identifying overspending and fraud in the kingdom's budget. Kazuya then invites Liscia to Elfrieden's farms, where he explains too much farmland is growing cotton, which is now worthless due to supply exceeding demand. While Liscia is impressed with his insights, she seems concerned Kazuya still talks about one day abdicating and returning to Japan. Kazuya later meets Captain Ludwin of the Royal Guard, and explains Albert's advisors are not much use as they caused Elfrieden's problems in the first place, so he needs new advisors. Kazuya magically transmits a message to the entire kingdom based on the teachings of his hero, Cao Cao, that if anyone has an exceptionally useful skill, he will hire them regardless of age, social background, or level of education. This inspires the whole kingdom and hundreds of people to begin flocking to the city to audition their skills. Liscia wonders if Kazuya would remain king if she agreed to marry him. As people begin auditioning their skills, Kazuya meets 5 deemed the greatest. Aisha Udgard, a dark elf with exceptional military ability, swears fealty after receiving Kazuya's knowledge on saving the dying trees of the god-protected forest. Juna Doma, a human singer with Lorelei ancestry, sings a Japanese song from Kazuya's phone, lifting the entire kingdom's spirits. Pancho Panacota, a nervous human glutton, is noted for having sampled every cuisine. Kazuya is excited to meet him as he plans to use his knowledge to save the kingdom and grants him the title Ishizuka. Seeing their king honor a man previously seen as useless, many others are inspired to audition. Hakuya Kwanmin, a human with unrivaled knowledge and memory, asks to be Kazuya's advisor after he deems Kazuya a good king based on how he treated Pancho. Lastly, Tomoe Inui, a mystic wolf girl and a homeless refugee, reveals she can talk to animals. As she is so nervous, Kazuya leaves his throne and kneels in front of her, where she whispers something important in his ear. Kazuya reveals to Marx, Liscia, and Ludwin that Tomoe's skill lets her speak to demons. A major barrier in the war is that no one can understand demon language, but with Tomoe there exists the hope for negotiations leading to peace. Kazuya is concerned that if news of Tomoe's power leaks, it could lead to war with other kingdoms who may want her power for themselves. Marx suggests Kazuya adopt Tomoe, but he cannot do that unless he is married. When Liscia suggests letting her parents adopt Tomoe as well as bringing Tomoe's mother and brother to live in the palace, Tomoe accepts. Liscia later becomes annoyed when Kazuya claims the only place he can be left alone to relax is her bedroom. Pancho returns from a food gathering mission, and Kazuya immediately broadcasts to the entire kingdom a rudimentary cooking program demonstrating unfamiliar foods from other nations, which they can use to survive until he solves the food shortage, such as octopus, burdock root, and giant locusts. Kazuya also happily discovers salted beans and fermented mash water taste identical to miso and soy sauce. Pancho reveals the final food item, which causes quite a stir. The item is a creature called a gelin, which, if prepared properly, creates a dish similar to kudzu noodles. Marx announces he is retiring as prime minister and suggests Hakuya as his replacement. Kazuya agrees and gives Marx a less stressful job, hoping to use his experience to navigate kingdom politics. Hakuya insists Kazuya take the afternoon off to relax, and at the same time take Liscia on a date with Aisha as their bodyguard. Aisha reminds Kazuya to visit her forest soon, as some elves are refusing to cut down any trees even if it makes the forest healthier. Kazuya, Liscia, and Aisha disguise themselves in military academy uniforms and decide to eat at the cafe where Juna works. While eating, it becomes apparent Aisha has a secret gluttonous side that almost rivals Pancho. Kazuya learns that polygamy is legal and socially acceptable, and is surprised when Liscia claims she would be willing to let Kazuya have up to 8 wives, including herself, ensuring she got him to herself at least 1 day a week. While considering the implications of this, Kazuya overhears a young lady arguing with a man at the next table. Kazuya narrates that because Elfrieden royalty are humans, the generals of the army, navy, and air force are from non-human species to ensure equality, but the generals are currently ignoring Kazuya. In Juna's cafe, the lady, a mystic fox named Katie Foxia, argues with her friend Halbert Magna, who is considering supporting the Carmine Duchy against Kazuya. Katie has correctly guessed Kazuya's intentions for trying to better the kingdom. Kazuya reveals himself and points out that, as a mage for Elfrieden's army, Katie would have to fight if Duke Carmine starts a civil war, meaning she might die and there is a slim chance that Halbert might have to face her in battle. Realizing Kazuya is wiser than he thought, Halbert sides with Kazuya. Liscia is impressed Kazuya noticed Halbert's feeling for Cade, but is concerned he still talks about abdicating and marrying for love instead of politics. Glaive, Halbert's father, asks Kazuya's forgiveness for his son. Kazuya instead has Cade promoted to staff officer in his royal guard, and transfers Halbert to the same unit to be Cade's subordinate. In gratitude, Glaive asks for a private meeting to give Kazuya important information. Magic comprises 6 disciplines, the 4 elements plus light and darkness. Fire mages join the army, wind the air force, water the navy, and earth the forbidden. While light become medics, dark abilities are varied. Kazuya uses his magic to possess a doll called Little Musashibo. Little Musashibo joins adventurers mapping tunnels beneath the city. They encounter a salamander that forces them to flee, with Little Musashibo saving one adventurer, Yuno, who develops a crush on him. Thanks to Kazuya's secretaries, he secures the funds for Project Veneta Nova, the building of a new port on Elfrieden's coast, and hundreds of new roads. Kazuya visits Veneta Nova, but learns construction was halted by a village elder named Urup, claiming that the land belongs to Kaijin, god of the sea, and is guarded by a sea monster. After speaking to Urup, Kazuya determines that the monster is actually a legend, warning that the land is dangerous to build on, and deduces that a tsunami strikes that land every few hundred years. So, he relocates Veneta Nova and has Earth mages construct giant flood defenses, impressing Liscia that he is ensuring the kingdom's safety potentially thousands of years in the future. Kazuya considers how Elfrieden technology is different from Japan. As Elfrieden is short of laborers, Kazuya has 50 soldiers from his forbidden army, including Cade and Halbert, construct the road network. Kazuya inspects the road, revealing it improves transportation but also ensures wildlife is not negatively affected. Aisha receives word from her father, Chief Wodan, that a landslide in the god-protected forest buried half their village. Kazuya mobilizes the 50 soldiers while also sending Liscia to gather reinforcements. As the forest is 2 days away on foot, Kazuya has his men travel much faster on wagons pulled by earth dragons. Kazuya and the men begin disaster rescue, and with prototype wooden mice controlled by his magic, locates all the missing dark elves whether alive or dead. Liscia arrives with reinforcements to begin medical treatments, clean up the landslide, and begin rebuilding the village. Wodan's brother, Robthor, is devastated as his wife is dead and his daughter is seriously injured. Aisha reveals Robthor was one of the main opponents of Kazuya's suggestion of thinning overpopulated trees, which could have prevented the landslide. Liscia is surprised when Kazuya blames himself for not ensuring sufficient disaster preparedness for the whole kingdom. Kazuya is having trouble sleeping from stress, so Juna begins singing him to sleep. Air Force General Castor Vargas wants to rebel against Kazuya with the support of the Amadonia Principality, but Navy General X.L. Walters is reluctant. Army General George Carmine despises Kazuya for removing men of authority in the name of efficiency. In Amadonia, King Gaius reveals he ultimately plans to betray both sides. Kazuya declares the food shortage is over and must move on to a plan he considers cruel but necessary for Elfrieden's security. Gaius ignores his minister Colbert's warning that his plan violates the ban on inter-kingdom conflict. Colbert is fired, so Gaius' daughter, Aurora, involves Colbert in her plan instead. Kazuya meets the generals and warns either they submit to his rule or become traitors. Excel is satisfied to hear that he will take no revenge and will keep Lagoon City as Elfrieden's naval base, so she submits. Castor refuses to accept Kazuya as king and becomes a traitor alongside Jorg. Liscia cuts her hair, which to a lion man like Jorg is a vow of absolute resolve. Kazuya thanks Juna for arranging peace with her grandmother, Excel, prior to the meeting. Amadonia begins their invasion, planning to occupy Elfrieden's southernmost city, Altamura. Altamura's lord, Weist Guerreau, surrenders to Gaius in exchange for time to convince his soldiers loyal to Kazuya to surrender. Albert and Cade lead the Forbidden Army, Kazuya's royal guard, and the elves against Carmine's army to defeat them. Carmine is berated by the corrupt nobles he sheltered, but in turn he berates their lack of battlefield experience and hatches his own plan in secret. It is revealed Weist is loyal to Kazuya and is taking orders from Excel, who was in Altamora the entire time, to delay Gaius as long as possible. Castor sends his air force against the Forbidden Army and is surprised when Kazuya sends his largest battleship, Albert, straight to his fortress. Castor sends his daughter Carla to destroy the ship and capture Kazuya. Carla regrets she could not convince her father to side with Kazuya. She destroys its wheels but finds no crew or Kazuya, only a wooden hand. She realizes Kazuya was controlling Albert himself entirely by magic to draw out the remaining air force, allowing Kazuya and his army to attack Castor in his fortress without any defenses. Castor is defeated by Aisha, Liscia, and little Musashibo. Castor accepts his defeat, and he and Carla are fitted with slave collars. Castor's subordinate, Tolman, is given command of the Air Force and ordered to support the Forbidden Army. Carla is surprised Kazuya allows people he considers friends, like Albert and Cade, to speak to him casually. Carmine declares to the corrupt nobles that they have lost, and when they suggest using citizens as human shields, he has them arrested, and both them and himself fitted with slave collars. Kazuya reveals Carmine was never a traitor. He was loyal to Kazuya the whole time, but posed as a traitor to expose the hidden treason of the corrupt nobles, allowing Kazuya to remove them for good. This had been the important information Glaive gave during their private meeting. Excel reveals herself to Gaius, who realizes he has been tricked. Kazuya broadcasts to the kingdom his defeat of Carmine and Castor, and intention to invade Amadonia. Gaius attempts to return to Amadonia, but loses half his army to Forbidden Army ambushes along the way, and by the time he makes it back to Van, Amadonia's royal capital, Kazuya has already captured it. Gaius orders his army to attack. Kazuya is troubled over declaring war so easily, and concludes he must actually act like a king. Gaius orders his son Julius to retreat. He then enters the battle to kill Kazuya. Kazuya attempts to give a verbal last will and testament to Carla, naming Liscia queen if he dies, but Carla refuses and insists on killing Gaius for him. Carla is overwhelmed by Gaius until he is distracted by Kazuya's arrival, allowing little Musashibo to grab Gaius and explode. Gaius survives long enough to contemptuously throw his sword at Kazuya's feet before being shot by Kazuya's archers. Aurora receives word of her father's death and, despite her dislike of him, begins to cry. Knowing he cannot legally claim Amadonia due to the ban on inter-kingdom war, and that Amadonia's citizens are bitter against Elfrieden, Kazuya instead sells their stockpiles of weaponry for rebuilding funds, and orders food supplied from Elfrieden to combat Amadonia's food shortages. He also broadcasts a music program hosted by Aisha and Juna, including Margarita Wonder, Amadonia's most popular general, singing their national anthem to prove he has no ill will against Amadonia now or in the future. Maria Euphoria, the idealistic leader of the Grand Chaos Empire who created the ban on inter-kingdom war, sends her sister Jean to meet Kazuya. Kazuya is exhausted, as ever since ending Gaius's oppressive military dictatorship, Amadonia's citizens are constantly celebrating. Poncho discovers a lily with edible roots similar to potatoes that could solve Amadonia's food shortages. Due to toxic pollen, the lilies can only be harvested by orangutans, so Kazuya arranges for Tomoe to negotiate with them. He then takes her and Juna shopping. Sometime later, Jean appears and confronts Kazuya, revealing she has been watching him and is happy that while he is both wise and just, the rumors of his lechery by gathering a harem of famous women are false, as he has proven to be both humble and amusing. She also apologizes, as it was partially the Empire's fault Elfrieden summoned him from Japan to settle its debts. But Kazuya understands that for Elfrieden, it was political necessity, and he bears no grudge. Unfortunately, Jean explains his invasion was still illegal, and he will have to answer to Maria. Kazuya returns home with Tomoe and Juna and gives gifts to Aisha and Liscia.